Hello and welcome to You So You. My name's Zoe and this is my channel all about the crafty bits and pieces I get up to. I knit, I sew, I spin on a drop spindle, I occasionally dabble in a bit of weaving and various other bits and bobs. So grab a brew, put your feet up and let's get started. Welcome back to any returning viewers and to any new viewers, and especially warm welcome to you. First of all, let's get going with what I am wearing, and I'm actually wearing a finished object. So I'm going to stand up to show you the hemline of this. This is my Floof, which is a design by Skeindeer. I have worked it into a cropped length, as you can see. It's actually a full length design. And it's worked in a strand of fingering held with mohair, but I've got it sitting a little above my waist. These jeans, unfortunately, these commercial jeans, do tend to roll over a little bit, but if I pull them up properly, so when I'm wearing high-waisted jeans and skirts, or when I'm wearing dresses, this sits quite nicely above the natural waistline, and it's got a dropped back, dropped hem at the back, so it sits closer to the waistband at the back. But I do need to work on sorting out either a new pair of jeans or these jeans to sit properly. I think the waistband is just a fraction too tall for my natural waist. So yeah, but jeans, as you know, are on my make 9, so there we go. But more about this sweater. It's a nice easy knit. It's a contiguous shoulder, which I'd not done before, which was part of the appeal of this pattern, to be honest. So I wanted to try that construction method. Part of the reason I've cropped it, not just to wear it over high-waisted things and dresses, is because I only actually had 2 skeins of yarn to work this in. So I've worked it in the yarn that I dyed up during Vlogmas. So you're welcome to go back to that playlist and see the process that I took to dye the yarn. I used Kool-Aid, and I had 2 skeins of, it's not wool of the Andes. It's the 100% Peruvian Highland base that Knit Picks sells. Might be Stroll. I'll put it on screen somewhere for you to see. But it was the fingering weight, 100% Peruvian wool. I dyed it with Kool-Aid, and as I say, I only had the 2 skeins, so I knew I was going to have to do either a smaller project or a cropped sweater. And the mohair, I did need to top up my mohair, but I've started off knitting most of the sweater with mohair left over from a shawl that I'd previously knitted. So yes, I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. The 2 skeins of yarn did work up. I used different methods to dye them, so they have worked up slightly differently. So at the top I have the skein that I put the powdered Kool-Aid on whilst it was damp and lying on the surface, so that has bolder colours and more white space in it. And then lower down I've faded into a skein that was dyed using the same colours but was done in my slow cooker, so it's a more all over, more diluted use of the colours. So I faded them through around about the bust, and I used helical knitting all down the sleeves to blend the 2 skeins together. And combined with the helical knitting and the use of the mohair, that's really blended the 2 skeins together, so I'm so pleased with this. And I am getting a lot of wear out of it as well. I don't have a problem with pure wool and mohair next to my skin, so I'm actually just wearing this over a bodysuit, which is like a strappy vest top, because I don't have any issues with that. But yeah, really pleased, and I can see myself knitting this pattern in its full original length as well, because it's an easy to wear, nice fitting, simple to knit, throw over anything type sweater. So yes, a big thumbs up for Floof. And that is what I am wearing today, but as I say, it is also a finished object, so let's move swiftly on into my other finished objects for today. I'm not going to include here my Sew My Style or my Recycle Mal makes. They're going to be in a separate video for you, so keep watching out for that. But I do have some finished objects to show you today. They are knitted finished objects, and the first one is here. This was a test knit. This is the Shrug Hug by Knitting Expat. I don't, as far as I'm aware, the pattern hasn't been released as of yet, but I'm sure it's not too far away. I've worked this up in a chunky yarn. I've used Jamieson over Shetland in their Fuschia colourway. It's a pure wool. It does felt together, although I did get quite far through this garment before I realised I could split splice, which meant there were some ends to weave in, but there didn't necessarily need to be. So as you can see, it sits nicely down the side of the body and it has these ribbed sleeves on it. The seam line is here because you work this project in the flat and then seam it together and pick up for the sleeves. There is also a fantastic textured pattern on the back. If I turn it around so that you can see, it's wonderful texture here. It's all knit and purl texture, and yeah, got it edging, simple to work. This knitted up super quickly. Obviously, if you were to knit it in a different weight of yarn, then that would make a difference to the time you took. I was working up the 3.5 stitch to the inch gauge, and Mina Knitting Expat has actually written this for I think about 7 different gauges, so there's a whole range of different yarn weights that you can use, and I can definitely see myself working up another version of this in perhaps a thinner weight yarn to get a bit more drape to it, perhaps in a slightly longer length as well, to sling on over summer dresses. This one's nice and cosy, and I do sometimes put it on over a jumper when it's really cold. It's a little bit like wearing a shawl with sleeves. But yeah, I really enjoyed working up this and looking forward to the pattern being released so I can see how you guys work it up as well. And my next finished object is another Knitting Expat design that's just down here, so I'm just going to grab it. This is a project you have seen before that I've been working on for quite some time. This is worked in Mirasol, Sulka Legato, which is a wool, alpaca and silk blend, and it is the Parisian Dreams sweater. So it's got this lace panelling at the front, stocking stitch sleeves, twisted rib on the cuffs, the neckline and the hem, and stocking stitch at the back. I have again worked this shorter than the pattern was written for. I am significantly shorter than Mina of Knitting Expat, and I quite like my sweaters to sit around my waistband if I'm going to be wearing them with dresses and skirts, and I wanted to have the option to do that with this because it's such a neutral colour. The sweater's worked bottom up, so you work it up to the sleeves, which meant I had to take out an entire lace repeat to shorten the length, rather than sort of starting part way through, because I hadn't sort of... When I started knitting it, I was going to knit it at full length, but as I knit it, I realised I wanted it a little bit shorter. So I couldn't start sort of part way through the repeat, as it were. It is nice and comfy and cosy. It's a drop sleeve sweater. It's nice and easy to wear. The one thing that I would like to adjust on it if I were to knit it again is the back is actually shorter than the front, because obviously the lace pattern and the yarn has grown as I've blocked it. So you can see that the rear hem is actually scooping upwards. So it would have been nice to have had some short rows in the back there to drop that down, or potentially to have knitted the back with the same lace pattern as the front. That would then resolve the issue because both sides would grow at the same rate. So other than taking out one repeat of the pattern, I've actually put the neckline in as well at the front an inch lower, just because I wanted a lower neckline on this particular sweater. I still knitted the front to the same length as I would have done if I had have put the neckline in where it was written. I literally just put that shaping in an inch before it was called for, and then knitted the shoulders to the right length. So that's that one, and I cannot recommend this yarn enough. It is super soft and drapey and wonderful, and because I shortened it, I have 2 skeins left. It's 50 gram skeins. So I can actually make something else with it. Thinking maybe a shawl or something, we'll see. So that's that sweater. And my final finished object to show you for this video, before I move on to works in progress and so on, is down here again. Oh, up we go, up we pop. Just popping out screen. I need a little table to put beside me, I think. I've got a big table here, but that's got my computer on it where I'm checking that you can see what I'm showing you, and so on. So I haven't really got space to put finished objects on there. But Sock Madness has started. So these are technically not a February finish, whereas all my other finished objects were. These were started on the 29th of February because Sock Madness officially starts on the 1st of March, but they released the pattern a day early with it being a leap year this year. And it's the qualifier socks. So these are Wohin. I have worked these up in a week. Obviously, as we go through Sock Madness, I will be aiming to get back to my sort of 3-day average, which is what I achieved last year for Sock Madness. This is the pair of socks that you knit in order to get put onto a team to qualify to compete in Sock Madness. So I didn't rush them. You have 2 weeks to do them, and as long as you complete them in those 2 weeks, you get selected for a team. So that's good. They've got a textured rib on the cuff, the heel flap, and the toe. The leg is worked in dip stitches, and the foot is worked in tuck stitches, which means the gauge is different on the leg to on the top of the foot. And because the top of the foot is longer than the sole, the designer's actually put in some shaping into the sole, so she's using slip stitches to stop the toe sort of curving up. So that was really interesting. I've worked these in West Yorkshire Spinners Gypsophila, that's their 4-ply signature, and then this darker green is Happy Feet from Hobby, which is a very affordable yarn store, online yarn store, based in Denmark, and they do yarn in all sorts of different weights. Some that is their own brand, some that they supply on behalf of other companies. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the name of this colourway. I don't speak Danish, but it's basically dark green. Most of my Sock Madness socks this year will be knitted in part or entirely in Happy Feet, because that's what I stocked up with this year. I have a design on the go that I'm not going to show you today because there's nothing really to show compared to what I showed you last time, that I'm working in Happy Feet XL, which is a heavier weight fingering, almost sport weight, and this is the like true fingering weight sock yarn. So the yardage per 50 gram is better, and they're sold in 50 gram skeins. I say nice and affordable. So we'll be seeing a lot more of Happy Feet as we progress through Sock Madness. So moving on to works in progress, and I have different crafts to show you. Let's start with the knitting. I'm just going to show you the one because you've obviously seen my design projects before, and there's nothing much to show compared to what you saw last time on them because I've been focusing on test knits and Sock Madness and so on. But I did need a handbag project. I've had a few appointments recently, and sometimes we sit and wait around for a while, so I wanted something simple that I could shove in my handbag and knit on whilst I'm waiting. So I have here in West Yorkshire Spinner Gems in this green, and I've just introduced the grey, the Cumulus Cowl by Knitting Expat. I'm going to put up here the Cumulus hat. Actually, there may not be space up this side today. I might have to put it here. The Cumulus hat that I knitted a few years ago, which I did as a test knit for Mina. And when I knitted that hat, I bought enough of the same yarn to work the cowl up as well when the cowl was released, but I hadn't got around to actually doing it. So I've now cast it on, and I'm starting to work through the pattern, the contrast colours as I go up the length of the cowl. It shouldn't take me too long to do. It is knitted in, well, my version is knitted in DK with a strand of mohair for the green, but I haven't held the mohair with the contrast colours on the hat, so I'm not going to do that on the cowl either. The reason I chose to do it with mohair, it's not written for mohair, but the yarn that I chose was slightly thinner than is called for in the pattern, so I wasn't quite getting the gauge with the yarn on its own. Plus, the green was just so bright that I wanted to sort of tone it down a bit, and putting a dark mohair with it, so that's the mohair, and that's the green. So you see the mohair is a bit darker than the green itself, so that really sort of mellows out that green. So that'll be a nice matching set when I get that done. So that's my knitting work in progress. There is a little bit of a green theme going on to my knitting at the moment. It must be Paddy's Day coming up. Next work in progress I'm going to show you, I have shown you before, but I have been doing a bit of work on it. So, on my embroidery frame, I use this seat frame. So this bit goes underneath my leg and the hoop sits over the top. I have my cross stitch that I've been working on. So this is the section I'm working on at the moment. This is the bit I've already done. This bit is completely finished. I've done all the back stitching and everything on this side. This side I'm still working through the crosses on. And the pattern is this one here. So it came as a kit and it's this rather cute library with a cat sleeping in amongst the books. So that's going to go somewhere in the house when I get it done. But I have been making quite a bit of progress on it over the past few weeks. So I thought I'd show it to you as I haven't shown it to you in a while. Obviously I will keep you updated as I go with that, but I'm not going to show it to you every time I work on it just because cross stitch is quite slow going. So to have enough difference from one time to the next, I'll just show it to you every once in a while. I do have one more work in progress to show you, and it is yet another different craft. It's also something you've not seen before, despite the fact that I began this project at least 4 years ago. I got started on it, put it to one side, other things took over, and I picked it up again last week and have made a huge amount of progress over the past sort of week or so, to the point where I think I'll probably have it finished this month. So let me grab that for you. Okay, so, as I say, about 4 or 5 years ago I began this project. I bought a kit because I wanted to try quilting. Now I have done quilted like tote bags and that sort of thing in the past, where it's been a single block. That I did about the same time as I started this project, as I wanted to try out quilting, as I say, and quilting by hand particularly, because my aunt does these beautiful hand quilted full-sized quilts. She did some for my nieces and they are absolutely gorgeous. So I bought this kit and I started piecing together the blocks by hand. I'd got all the pieces cut out and all the blocks pieced together and stitched together, put it to one side, as I say, didn't touch it for a few years. But I am determined to reduce the pile of whips that I've got in the house over this year. So I took my blocks and I finished piecing them together to make the quilt top. And I've got my quilt sandwich together and started hand quilting by hand. So I have this small quilt. So the top is going to be about there at the top. I'll lower it into the frame a little bit. So the top is just tucked over the edge of the Q-snap. So it's going to be about there for the top and there for the bottom. So this is designed to be a wall hanging. What you won't be able to see at the moment on the camera particularly clearly is the quilting. I mean, you can start to see, I think, some of the indentations, but because this is quite dark and I'm quilting in a dark thread, you're not going to see it so much. So I'm just going to flip it round so you can see some of the quilting stitches that I've done on the back. Oh, I need to go that way. Yeah, there we go. So you can start to see here that I've been quilting around the blocks themselves. So I'm gridding the main background and then sewing around all the different bits of patchwork for the centre of the quilt, and then I'm going to be quilting the border. In the kit it tells you to do diagonal lines across this border, which is fine, but I think what I might do is actually do wiggly lines down some of these prints on there. I think that's going to compete less with the fabric, and I'm also going to be quilting down this inner border as well, and then it's a question of binding it. So I'll need to trim off the excess backing and wadding because there is quite a bit of excess, and then put a binding on it, which will be in the same fabric as the inner border. So this dark fabric here will be the binding as well. So this will be an entirely hand quilted project. It's not brilliantly pieced together because I was still sort of getting to grips with piecing blocks when I was making this one, so there are obviously a few issues, and also there was only just enough fabric for some of the pieces. The backing fabric isn't quite big enough for the finished project either. I don't know whether I've maybe pieced a few blocks together with a smaller seam allowance than was called for, so it was about 4 or 5 years ago and I did that. But you're meant to have excess backing fabric all the way around, and there isn't. There is on two sides but not on the other two, so it would have been nice if the packet had a slightly larger bit of the backing fabric in it, but it's fine. I mean, we'll work with it. It doesn't need to be perfect, it's handmade, and it is my first quilt. I do have another quilt top that I began working on about 4 years ago again, but I didn't have a big enough piece of backing fabric, so I've been piecing together backing fabric for that. But again, that's been put aside to be done as well. So that's on the list. But this small one is, as I say, nearly done, and I'm fully anticipating being able to show you the finished item next month in my podcast rounding up March's makes. I'm just going to show you the picture of it on the kit. This is the booklet that came in the kit, so that's roughly what it's going to look like when it's finished. So it's a hole in the barn door, which is, I believe, a traditional quilt block. I believe. But you can see on the design that the blocks are crisp and clear, and none of the backing colours are going over the edges of the points. I haven't achieved that on mine, but as I say, it's my first one, so never mind. It's not that big a deal. So yes, that's my works in progress for this week. And the last thing I have to show you is a bit of Stashquisition. As you know, I am one of the Minerva makers, which means that sometimes I receive fabric from Minerva in return for blog posts. So it's gifted to me in return for me making something and then writing a blog about it. I do have 4 projects that are awaiting publication at the moment, and there will be another 3 coming up very shortly, which I do need to get cracking on because I've got these 3 fabrics here that I had to wait till they were in stock for them to come out to me. So by the time I received them, the next request had gone in. So I have another set of fabric on its way. So I need to get cracking on sewing these up in the next week or 2 so that I can get on with the next lot. So let's show you the fabrics that I have. First up is this scuba with this large print and pale blue background, floral and ferns. Scuba is a polyester. It's a stretch polyester, and it's really easy to work with, but it is quite warm to wear. So this is going to be, assuming I've got enough stretch in it, a Sirocco jumpsuit, which needs 60% crossways stretch, which I believe there is just about enough in the scuba, but I'm also making some size adjustments to the pattern, so that should hopefully resolve any issues I may come across if there isn't quite enough stretch. I think I'm about there. I will obviously double check before I cut out, so I know if I need to cut out slightly larger to accommodate for the stretch. But it will be a spring, autumn item of clothing, or for the cooler days in the summer. Being in the UK, we don't always get blazing hot sunshine in the summer. We have done the past few years, so this wouldn't be a hot day outfit to wear because scuba does get very, very warm. But for spring and autumn, that's going to be fine. The next fabric I'm going to show you is some quilting cotton. So this is gold chevron quilting cotton. I have 3 metres of each of these fabrics, incidentally, because that's my go-to of, I don't know quite what I want to make with it length. When I have like 2 or 3 options in mind, I'll go for 3 metres and then pick it out afterwards, unless one of the options needs definitely more, or if all of the options need definitely less. And when I'm ordering stuff online, I'm more likely to go for 3 metres than not, because I might change my mind once the fabric arrives as to what I'm going to make with it. Which is what happened with this fabric. I was going to use it for the Summit bag for Sew My Style last month, but had to wait for the fabric to be in stock, so February was over before it arrived, well, almost over before it arrived, and I'd already come up with a different solution for things to make my Summit bag in, but more on that in the Sew My Style Recycle video. So this quilting cotton, it is nice and soft. It's softer than the shirting that I worked with before from Minerva, so it's going to have a bit more drape to it. I've decided with this, I'm actually going to try a Legato pattern. Legato is a company that you order online, you order PDF patterns, but you put in your measurements when you place the order. The patterns are cheaper. Without seam allowance, it's about £2.50. Then you pay 25p more to have seam allowance added. So I thought I'd try them out and see what they're like with a relatively forgiving pattern. So assuming that this fabric is wide enough for the pattern pieces, which I've yet to test, I will be making a Legato shirt out of this. It's quite a loose fitting, blousey, non-button shirt, so that should be quite good. But as I say, it does depend on whether or not the pattern piece for the front fits on the width of the fabric. I should be okay, or I might need to do a little bit of fabric Tetris. It may be that I have to kind of cut the front into two pieces and seam the front, which I'm okay with, as long as I pattern match on the fabric, because that's obviously quite a bold print, and I don't mind so much the side seams not matching, but I definitely don't want down the middle of the front of the blouse the pattern to be out. Okay. The third and final fabric I need to show you for my Stashquisitions is, again, from Minerva. These are all gifted from Minerva, so this is pretty much the sponsored section of the video. But it is this lovely double gauze in this minty green with blue floral prints on it. Now, double gauze, for those of you that don't know, is a very lightweight fabric. You know the gauze that you see on the inside of like medical bandages and stuff, that really fine gauze? It's got that kind of fabric on the back and then a printed fabric on the front. So it's 2 layers of lightweight cotton gauze that are then attached at even regular points throughout with a little tiny imperceptible stitch. And when I washed and pressed this, the front has gained, the printed side has gained that slightly rippled texture in places where it's connected to the bottom. So I think what has happened is that the backing gauze, which is this lighter one, I can see where the stitches are on it, but I doubt it's being picked up on the camera. But this one has shrunk ever so slightly more than the green, which is fine. Because this is going to be a summery dress. It's going to be my Sew My Style make for March, which will be the gelato dress. So yes, I'm quite pleased with that one. I'll talk more about gelato in the Sew My Style Recycle video. So that's my fabric Stashquisitions. I did, as I say, stock up for Sock Madness with a bunch of Happy Feet yarn, but I'm not going to show that to you right now. I will show that to you as it gets knitted up into various socks throughout the next month or two. The majority of them are solid colours. I've got 2 variegated ones and 1 hand-dyed variegated, which may or may not get used during Sock Madness. I might save that. But yeah, I'm not going to show you those at the moment, because quite frankly, solid sock yarn is solid sock yarn. So yeah, so that's all I've got for you for this video. I believe. Yep, nothing else to show you for this one. I will be back in a day or two with my Sew My Style Recycle catch up to show you what I've been doing for those challenges. But until then, have a good one. I will see you next time. Like and subscribe down below. If you like what you see, by all means share it with your friends. Bring them on over. We're a very welcoming community. So watch out for my Sew My Style Recycle catch up video in a couple of days. And until next time, have a good one. Happy crafting. See you soon.